Hello everyone. I am honored to be here at the Salish Equity and Justice Symposium with all the other amazing speakers today, and I'm grateful to everyone who is here sharing this space with us. Thank you to the Wapagal, also known as Intellectual House, and to the Coast Salish peoples whose unceded ancestral land we are currently on. It's good to be back on the stage. My name is Hannah Jarvis Wilson, and I use she, hers pronouns. I'm here to share with you what my role in the environmental field means to me and how I got there. I'm a big believer in vulnerability, softness, and supporting others out loud. So feel free to be vulnerable with me, snap on something that resonates with you in one way or another. I was born and raised on Weka-Olo land in what settlers call the San Francisco Bay Area, specifically in the Silicon Valley. An area that regularly pats itself on the back for being progressive when the public school system couldn't be bothered to teach about indigenous peoples or their knowledge outside of the context of the Catholic missions, or discuss the displacement of low-income and PSC communities in the area, as well as rising homelessness and a long list of other equity issues. An area that often sits complacent in being socially progressive and fiscally conservative. An area that celebrates diversity only when it's convenient and not when it's difficult. An area where I grew up desperately looking for someone who looked like me and experienced the world like me and couldn't find it in the affluent, white, heteronormative suburbia I lived in. So I did what a lot of people do when they feel like that. Try to prove in a million ways where they do fit in, and in the process, stripping themselves of their identity in some way or another. I did well in school, played sports year-round. I read the same books as the other girls in class. I tried listening to the same music as my friends, had the same crushes as everyone else. But I also internalized a lot of people touching and commenting on my hair constantly, being told I was an Oreo or the whitest person they'd ever met, being asked if I can rap or why I dress like a tomboy sometimes, being asked what those things on my ears were, and being told I didn't seem deaf by the way I talked. No, I'm just like you, I always thought, just another kid. I think playing sports outside, going camping with my family, going on hikes or to the beach with my close friends brought me more peace and a sense of normalcy than I'd ever really given credit. Being outside would leave me of tight quarters at school or loud restaurants or chaotic social events where I couldn't hear people over the constant chatter or background noise, where the most interesting thing happening at any given time could be how different me or my body was from everyone else. I could be outside and play, and it didn't matter what I looked like, or if I could hear, or who I liked. What a relief. I did not really understand my interest in the environment fully until I took AP Environmental Science in high school. I think it was the first time that I took an interdisciplinary class like that, and it stuck with me. I loved it. It was complicated and nuanced. Climate change requires problem solving from so many different angles. I thought the way plants and animals and ecosystems had evolved over time was incredible. How maybe one plant or animal's weakness in one area caused them to specialize in another to make them adapt to their environment and be a competitive species. How every role in the ecosystem was just as valuable as the next, keeping everything in balance. I am privileged that my family can care and provide for me, including supporting my move to Washington to pursue my undergraduate degree at UW. I soon learned the history of the Duwamish people who have been on this land since time immemorial and who have since the signing of the Treaty of Point Elliott by Chief Seattle, have been through an innumerable amount of broken promises brought on by settler colonialism and violence. While they are undoubtedly a resilient people, it was born out of necessity. It's not really inspiring, but rather a failure of our systems. While uncovering the history of the land I was on as a settler in school and work, I began to feel anger. I began to find the space and language to look at myself, where these emotions were coming from. Why this erasure of Indigenous peoples brought up this deep-seated anger within me. It's because as a Black woman, I wasn't experiencing the same type of problems, but I was fighting the same battle as Indigenous folks. As a queer woman, I experienced the same battle. As a disabled woman, I experienced the same battle. I've been fighting it my whole life, and I hadn't really been able to understand my emotions or the ways I've been mistreated for so long. I've been someone who's eager to please my whole life, not one to really ever bring up my struggles with racism, sexism, ableism, heteronormativity, or classism. Yeah, I coped with it this far, but I was pretty betrayed and hurt and disempowered. Is this really what resilience was supposed to mean? I had reached a tipping point. I'll be honest, it'd been building up for a while, but the 2016 election was really it. It forced me to see why identity is powerful and what is at stake when I don't recognize how it impacts my life. I understood the social conditioning and oppressive systems on both a large and personal scale now. I couldn't continue to internalize the harmful ways I've been treated, including the ways I've been erased. This is all sad, infuriating, and incredibly liberating at the same time. I mean liberating in a sense that it gave me clarity. I got clarity as in, looking back, I could see that my parents had been the first disability justice advocates in my life. There were years where my mom had to sue the school district for the sake of my IEP and drove me to more than 10 years of auditory verbal therapy weekly and took me to audiologist appointments all the time. It took a lot of work. I got clarity as in I understood the anti-Black and classist language mindset I'd grown up in. I got clarity as in I couldn't keep bottling up my feelings and not confronting my queer identity. Good news though, I found healing. I indulged my curiosities in my botany and ecology classes. I found important knowledge and language in my history and social justice classes. I found community in my friends and mentors that were POC, queer, and disabled, who celebrated my learning and growth. I learned to differentiate complacency and actual white allyship. I found my passion in the environmental justice movement. I stood up for myself for the first time. I spoke on my identity for the first time. I came out. I stopped hiding my struggles with being deaf. I allowed myself to recognize and process feelings. I started to ask for help and advocate for myself. I deserve that. Now I'm going to speak more on my more tangible work in the environmental field and my experiences with it. The purpose of sharing my own personal growth is to hopefully make it clear to those in positions of power, those who are making decisions in this field, and many of you here today probably, what kind of invisible experiences and knowledge and work people of color, LGBTQIA, disabled, and other communities experiencing oppression do before they even show up to work or school or an event. I mean the things that may not show up on a resume or cover letter, how maybe networking and unpaid internships are more of a marker of privilege than the type of employee someone will be. How working with specific communities requires trust and someone who understands their lived experience. These are just some of the factors that I encourage many of you to keep note of. Bring up with your colleagues and bosses and friends and family and with yourself. I worked at Global Visionaries, Green Place Special, and the Nature Consortium across South and West Seattle. These organizations gave me my first connection to the Seattle community as a transplant. Working at local NGOs gave me invaluable experience in fundraising, outreach, and running events. Showed how hard but rewarding community organizing is. Yet all of these environmental organizations were predominantly white, serving mostly communities of color. This isn't inherently wrong, but just something to question and to consider. At this time in school, I had just begun to narrow down my interests to urban ecology, restoration, and environmental justice. I took geographies of environmental justice with Maggie Jabara, a class that would forever change the trajectory of my life. I'd never seen how I could be a scientist or advocate in a way that mattered to me. In that class, I saw an incredibly diverse group of students and my professor who was an accomplished and respected social scientist in her field. I learned how race is the #1 determining factor when it comes to proximity to toxic environmental point sources of pollution, not class. I learned how the extremities of climate change will first impact communities of color and low-income communities as well. The lack of economic power and leverage POC communities have at their disposal, combined with infrastructure built to benefit wealthier white communities, are just a couple of the reasons why this is happening. At the end of that class, as well as Megan's Race, Nature, and Power class, I did projects where I took a map of my hometown and the Silicon Valley and analyzed variables of class, race, and proximity to those point source solutions, as well as the history of how those point sources of pollution came about. I found that what I learned in class had been playing out where I lived my entire life. This information and the work that people are doing to fight environmental justice issues is very personal. From then on, I wanted to use my privilege and resources to make these issues known and amplify the voices of those impacted by them. I was part of the Doors to Conservation Scholars 2017 cohort, a mostly POC space, a whole program dedicated to the intersection of conservation, identity, and social justice. The main goal of the program was to address the lack of diversity in the environmental field. As a result, I got exposed to local environmental justice leaders and organizations, some of them who looks like me. Everyone in my cohort and myself experienced that in academic spaces, we are in the minority at all times, and what we learned did not reflect our identities, whether it was ethnicity, race, or culture. This was one of the first times I felt like I could see myself as an environmental scientist, and I could celebrate that with the people around me. This was also where I had the opportunity to speak on the stage for the first time. This was also the first time I'd been given a formal platform to share my story. It really mattered. I worked for the Quinault Indian Nation Department of Natural Resources my second summer as a Doris Duke Scholar, working with their Environmental Protection Department, mainly under the botanists, but also working with hydrologists, biologists, foresters, and tribal cultural resource advisors alike. I worked on a project aimed to reestablish the traditional practice of burning prairies to cultivate important species such as camas, Labrador tea, and many different types of berries. I witnessed multidisciplinary teams navigate the messy system of policies and bureaucracy at federal, state, and tribal levels. I witnessed the ways the priorities of the tribe, the DNR, and outside government agencies did and didn't overlap, even when people were really trying to. I got to hear the stories of the Quinault from tribal elders and became friends with tribal members who would spend hours upon hours driving up and down the residence lobby roads to show us every corner of their beautiful home. I got to experience the amazing, welcoming, and generous community and sense of humor born out of surviving generations of fighting for their lives and land. The 2 summers I had with DDCSB were the most emotionally and mentally challenging months of my life. There was a lot of coming to terms with the lack of knowledge I had with the topic we were tackling, and my limited experiences in spaces where POC were in the majority. Somehow, it was the most uncomfortable and most comfortable I'd ever felt. It was so many, but it was also so many things I've been needing and missing in my life. Earlier this year, I graduated with a degree in environmental science and terrestrial resource management. My first job out of college, I did field work with an ecological disturbances lab, having one of the most fun and physically demanding summers I've ever had. We spent our days hiking off trail, bushwhacking, and sampling plots, looking at how pests, fires, and other major disturbances impact our forests, and how we can better incorporate this information in our forest management. This means working with stakeholders that range from other scientists, foresters, government agencies, and tribes. Personally, I got to continue my work with fire ecology, looking at both treatment and areas impacted by recent forest fires, including the establishment of one long-term study on the west side of Washington at North Peak near Mount Rainier. It's unfortunate that fire has been misunderstood for so long, but it is beautiful to see that change within the forestry community and slowly with the public as well. The severely burnt stands on North Peak were haunting, mostly just massive flat charred trunks of trees without any branches or crown whatsoever. But on the ground, the herbaceous plants, flowers, and little seedlings were sprouting everywhere. Butterflies flying around, iridescent beetles, little bunnies sprinting up and down the slopes. Regeneration is inherently beautiful and natural. It's a little bit like how I think it's beautiful to deconstruct current power structures and regenerate from the ground up through community work. As much as I love the work I was doing, I was in a predominantly white academic space in a field that has a heavy history and current mindset of excluding POC, settler colonialism, and is male-dominated. I was exhausted by the frustrating complacency the people I worked with had at times. It's not their fault, it takes work to understand these things. It's no one's fault to be born with privilege, but to stay complacent in that privilege is harmful to others and shows up to POC and other marginalized folks as a lack of responsibility and a lack of self-awareness. I struggled this summer with feeling like I had to explain myself and stand my ground a lot in small ways with my coworkers. This could mean me making a judgment or observation or explaining my perspective on something and being met with a lot of yes, but, or I think it's more like, these microaggressions undermine my contributions, and over time it's pretty draining. Especially as a Black woman, I felt like I was being put into place at times. I did have some relief because I was not the only woman of color on my crew, and we relied on each other heavily through the whole summer for support, despite us both considering ourselves pretty lucky to have the crew that we had. By the way, this is a great hiring tactic, hiring at least 2 POC at a time. Not only will you have 2 fabulous employees, but they will feel supported by each other. I guess what I'm trying to do here is paint a better picture of the invisible work I am doing when I step into these spaces. How diversifying spaces is just the first step, and inclusion means breaking down cultural barriers that I've been talking about. Shifting to lifting up and supporting POC, what POC have to say, and the work they do is crucial, instead of instantly going to critique, whether it is intentional or not. Up here I have the type of questions I hope to be asking in my work in the future. My dream is to go into urban planning and policy with an environmental justice focus. I want to make cities that generate economic equity, ensure food, housing, and healthcare for all, and limit suburban sprawl and development as to keep our remaining biodiverse ecosystems intact. And I want to work with others who are committed to social and environmental justice the same way I am. That's all I have. Thank you. I appreciate you all listening and holding this space for me. I hope to speak to many of you throughout the day on an individual level, so please approach me when you have the chance. I have a quick plug while I have you. It'd be great if sometime today everyone who's able to afford to could go to realrentduwamish.org and start a monthly donation or give a one-time donation to Duwamish Tribe as a small form of real-time reparation. Again, realrentduwamish.org. Thank you.